What's going on, everybody? It's Sasha, your licensed real estate market expert here in Charlotte. Time for our live Q&A, almost said monthly market report. So last time we did the Q&A, I believe was in May or June. So we're doing one now for the month of August. And then the next one I do will probably be in October or November. And if you happen to be watching this when I re-upload it, as always, leave a comment down below. I'll answer your question in the comments. And/or you guys always know you can call, text, or email me anytime. All my information's below, and it's also going to be listed right there. But in regards to that, I'll just start off with the market because everybody always asks, hey, how's the market? So funny enough, I've seen a pretty decent uptick in activity here in the last couple of weeks. I'm assuming this is due to the interest rates. If you've been keeping your eye out on the interest rates, they are in the 6.7, 6.6, even high sixes depending on credit score, but they've gone down a decent amount. And so far, based off of what they're talking about, it looks like we might see an interest rate cut here in September. But again, we've already seen the rates start to come down a little bit, and that's where I've noticed that little uptick in activity. No surprise at all because we've gone over it in regards to the market reports. We hit the new all-time high in price point. And there is no cookie cutter answer for any real estate related questions anymore because it's such a weird time. We have all the makings and all the pressure for house prices to potentially come down. However, it hasn't happened. Averages and medians have hit all-time highs, the highest that they've ever been before, and things are still moving. But then when you log in on your favorite search website, Zillow, Realtor.com, whatever the case is, you're seeing so much more inventory. And the inventory that is moving is the unique houses, the ones that have been updated, the ones that are extremely move-in ready, because that's what buyers want. So many buyers don't even want to paint, they don't want to change the flooring, they don't want to do anything. So when you see these unique houses and things like that pop up, a lot of that activity is what's dragging all these other prices up. In the neighborhood behind me, they just set a record for home sale price for a house for $975,000, when on average, the neighborhood behind me, you're maxing out probably around $750. But this house was a mid-century modern, unlike anything I've ever even seen. And I've been in the space for over 7 years now, so it doesn't surprise me at all. So even in the new construction communities now, which new construction is a whole different topic, but even in the new construction communities now, the ones that are selling are the new construction houses where somebody just gutted the bathroom and they went a little bit over the top, or they changed the countertops, even though they were already brand new and everything like that. And they just kind of customized it a lot more, to their liking. So it's interesting, but again, there's no one answer, no one size fits all for anything real estate related. And I got a unique house coming on the market in about 2 to 4 weeks. We're kind of testing the waters right now, but in about 2 to 4 weeks, if you're interested, it's going to be on 1.4 acres, literally 2 minutes away from downtown Mint Hill. Gorgeous house, down to the studs remodel in 2024. So everything is new. Roof, HVAC, flooring, plumbing, like literally everything. But if you have questions about that, you can feel free to reach out to me a little bit earlier. I'm going to hop into some other questions that I had on the last live that I wasn't able to get to because we were kind of, running a little bit low on time. Sasha, how are the interest rates affecting buyers in Charlotte? The interest rates always have a big effect. That's the whole reason the market went to the highs that it went in, from 2020 up until about the beginning of 2023. The rates were so low, people didn't really care about the price of the home. All they cared about was their monthly mortgage payment. So you had all those outlandish offers going down, happening. But funny enough, rates have been steadily going up. Now we're starting to see that downtick, but nothing really slowed people down, But again, it was all about that. Hey, what was the saying? Marry the home, date the rate, marry the home, date the rate. A lot of people did that. And unfortunately, if you look, you'll see people that bought houses 2 years ago starting to list them now. And obviously everybody's situation is different from wanting to sell. Some people got relocated. Some people want to get into a better school district. They just didn't end up liking the area. But I'm very curious if I was to be able to find out what the percentage of people that were kind of banking on that marry the home, date the rate situation are having to sell because they just never got the chance to refinance and they were hoping to within the next 6 months and next year, whatever the case is. If you can't afford the home at the current interest rate, you should not be buying in the first place because, again, a lot of people thought that 1 to 2 years ago and nothing has really happened in regards to the rates. Interest rates will always affect the real estate market as we've seen because now with the higher rates, buyers are a lot more hesitant to buy and everybody thinks these prices are going to come down and some people are uneasy about certain things in the economy. So interest rates are always going to affect the market, but we'll see what happens now that they're starting to tick down a little bit. Again, I'm seeing a lot more activity these last 2 weeks than I've seen prior to, and that is most likely because the interest rates have started to tick down. Any and all questions that you guys have on here, feel free to let me know. Happy to answer. How competitive is the market right now for buyers? I've said this dozens of times. It is night and day from what it used to be. If you're in the market and you're looking to buy, you actually have the opportunity to shop around. You don't need to go see a house the first day it hits the market unless it's a very unique property in a great area that you think is going to go relatively quickly. But you have the option to shop around. And we're seeing that right now with buyers. Buyers are being super picky as before when the market was red hot. There was no pickiness. You know, people were offering way above asking. The due diligence fees were super high. They were waiving inspections, no repairs, anything. So it's night and day from what it was. All around, it's so much better for buyers. It's so much better. You have a lot more options. You have a lot more negotiating power. In certain neighborhoods, we're starting to see the prices start to come down. But again, it's a very drawn out, it's a very long process because the same way it took so many years for the prices to hit these peaks, you know, year over year, same thing that would have to happen if the prices were going to go down across the board. But again, as of right now, we're hitting all-time highs in regards to average and the median sales price. Sasha, how does Charlotte compare to other cities in terms of cost of living? So funny enough, as the cost of living everywhere has just been, you know, going up and things like that, obviously Charlotte is not immune to that. And you guys know this, everything's gone up in Charlotte as well. However, comparing it to similar cities, we are still right there at, you know, the national average and or slightly below the national average when it comes to cost of living. But again, most people moving to Charlotte are moving here from more expensive cities and states. The top 5, I believe, are New York, New Jersey, Florida, the Northern Virginia area, which is that DMV area, and California. So those are the top 5, and all of those places are more expensive to live. Not only the real estate prices, but just all around cost of living, and then not to mention property taxes. Property taxes is one of the biggest things, especially from the people that I've worked with before that are telling me, hey, you know, we had a $600,000-$700,000 house in Jersey. We're paying $12,000 to $15,000 a year in property taxes. When here it's, you know, a fourth, maybe a third of that cost. So let alone, you know, just thinking about the property taxes, moving here from one of those other states, you're saving $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a year, which obviously can go towards whatever you want it to go towards. You can go towards a private school, public school, brand new car, anything like that. So it's really interesting. But yeah, obviously, if you're moving here from a city or state that is cheaper to live, you're gonna have a price shock, you know, when you come to the Charlotte area. There's just no doubt about it, because it happened to me. Moving here from Cleveland, Ohio, over 11 years ago. It's gonna be 12 this November, but I had that culture shock because where I was living, the single family homes up to 1,500 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, they were selling for like 100 to 125,000 that were in move-in condition. And when we moved to Charlotte, it wasn't crazy expensive, but it was about anywhere from roughly about $50,000 more for similar style homes. So, I had that culture shock of it being more expensive. But again, the people moving here from the more expensive cities and states, they're not fazed by it. They get a more house for their money. Everything just goes a lot further here than those more expensive states. Again, what I said earlier, there's no broad answer or like a cookie cutter answer. Is now a good time to buy or sell a home in Charlotte? All depends on your current situation. As you guys know, my wife and I, we closed on our house, this past November, the house we're in now. And I closed on that investment property at the end of May. And for me, it's a right time depending on what type of deal you can find. And there's really good deals out there. Yesterday, I was looking in south and east kind of Charlotte, and I mapped out this area where I'm personally looking at for another investment property. And total, I believe there was like 276 homes available within the criteria and the parameters that I ended up putting in. And then when I excluded the ones that have accepted an offer or pending or under contract, it brought it down to like 150. So you're looking at a totally different scenario nowadays. When you map out the whole thing, you're looking at close to 300, and then roughly half of those are under contract, which is a stark difference from what it was before. So that's where you're able to get your opportunities from. And trust me, there's a lot out there. And new construction's really interesting because the communities that were built here roughly in the last 5 years or so, you're seeing a lot of people starting to sell those, and there's other houses for sale in the same community, so you're having to compete with your neighbors. But then another thing that's happening is around that new construction, you have new construction ground up that's being completed this year, and you're having to compete with the builders, and the builders are offering the low rates, they're offering closing costs, buyer incentives, all these different things. So resale, houses that were built in the last 5 years, it's very interesting to take a look at. And then, versus houses that were built 10 plus years ago. So there's a very stark difference. But again, the ones that are move-in ready, that are updated nicely, they're the ones that are moving relatively quickly. What are some of the best neighborhoods for young families in Charlotte? I honestly can't go by neighborhoods because we'd be here for a very long time in regards to neighborhoods. But if you're looking at zip codes, South Charlotte area is a super, super desirable market. 28270, 28226, 2811, 28211, 28210. Matthews, for example, Waxhaw, things like that. Outside of that, there's a ton. You have Huntersville, you have Mooresville, you have the 28269 zip code, which you guys hear me talk about a lot. 28214 zip code is starting to gain a lot of traction with the amount of activity they're having. University area as well, a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to the houses over there. You can find a 2,000 to 2,500 square foot house at a very reasonable price. And that's move-in ready, that's having a nice backyard, being in a nice community, and obviously location, having access to all the major roads, having access to the light rail in some instances, just a bunch of different factors. But there's a ton of zip codes. 28278, the Steel Creek area over there, it's going through a lot. All of the South Carolinas, they've been blowing up. Fort Mill, Rock Hill, Indian Land, Tega Cay, so many of these different areas. Which reminds me, I hosted an open house at one of my listings not too long ago, and I had somebody come through and they were like, yeah, I'm looking to invest, and I'm looking at South Carolina and things like that. One big thing that people don't take into account in South Carolina when it comes to investing, and or if your thought is, hey, I'm going to buy this house in South Carolina, I'm going to live in it for 2 to 3 years, then we're going to buy another house and use this one as a rental. South Carolina is amazing for property taxes when it's your primary residence. When you're living in the home full time, your property taxes are super low. For example, if you buy a $500,000-$600,000 home, primary residence in South Carolina, your property tax are going to be maybe around $2,000, give or take. Could be a little bit less, could be a little bit more. If you were to take that same home with those $2,000 a year in property taxes and turn it into an investment property in South Carolina, your property taxes are going to triple, quadruple, maybe even more. And the people that don't know that, the people that try to go into it, without knowing it, you're going to be very surprised when you get your property tax bill after you change your address, change your driver's license. So, this gentleman that came through to the open house that asked me, about investing in South Carolina, I mean, he had no idea, and obviously if you're looking to invest there, and or like I said, you want to live there for a couple years, buy a house, and then turn that house into a rental, that's something you need to take into consideration, because it's going to eat up any or all of your cash flow in South Carolina. They're not as friendly as North Carolina, where the property tax really isn't going to vary. Just the interest rate you get on your investment property in North Carolina is going to vary versus the primary. Ooh, what are some of the biggest mistakes first-time home buyers make? This is a video. I mean, honestly, there are so many. One thing is not dialing down the specific area you want in regards to what you're looking for. You really got to niche down on what's important to you. What you want to be close to, what you want your, commute time to be. Do you see this area growing in the next 5 to 10 years, which a lot of areas in Charlotte will continue to grow because everything's just been expanding further and further out. Another thing, inspections. There's a lot of first-time home buyers and things like that out there that, you have to put the down payment, you have to pay for the closing costs and things like that. A lot of them don't want to pay the extra $600 to $800 for an inspection. They don't want to pay for a survey. There's just all these other expenses that I've seen people try to skimp out on, and it's just, it's not a good idea. In all honesty, the list of mistakes people can make is just, it's astronomical. Enzo the Picker, I like that name. One of my favorite cars ever, the Ferrari Enzo. I'm hoping the prices come down a bit in Waxhaw. Seems days on market are more and prices down a bit. Hard to find a small home in the 400s. Few small homes overall. Millbridge looks nice, but no backyard. Yes. Yes, I 100% agree with you. Waxhaw it's an amazing area. It's like a true suburb. You got a lot of families moving to the area because you got the great schools. And again, it's a true suburb. It's super family oriented, super family friendly. But with that, they're not building smaller homes. They're building houses 2,000, 2,500 plus in regards to square footage to accommodate all the families that are, moving there. Waxhaw is definitely a place I could see myself living in the future. But right now I don't have kids or anything like that. So for me personally, it's just not, a place I'd move to at this stage of my life. But, we'll see what happens here in the next 5+ years. But definitely somewhere I can end up being. And, days on market is definitely affecting prices, and it's putting that downward pressure on prices, just not to the level that people have thought. If you go on my market reports that I was doing 2 years ago, there's so many people that were like, oh yeah, give it another year, the price, give it another year, and then nothing has happened. So most people don't realize this, and this is something I'm going to go over in the next market report. Guys, the market's been correcting for the last 2 years, slightly over 2 years now, because we started to see that downward trajectory in regards to transactions, more days on market, more sellers. We started to see that trajectory start to happen in 2023. So we're over 2 years now. It's August right now. We're over 2.5 years now that the market's been correcting. But again, we've seen those prices hit all-time highs in regards to average and the median. But don't let that deter you. I don't want people to just look at the stats and say, oh, hey, this is what it is. There's no way, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of houses out there, and a lot more buyers have a lot more power now than they did before. And don't be worried about sending a potentially offensive offer or something like that, if you can justify an offer that's 30, 50 plus $1,000 under the listed price of a home, and if a home's been sitting there for 200 days, it's definitely doable. I'm seeing it not daily, but I'm seeing it weekly. Typically, how long does it take to close on a home? Typically, you're looking at 30 days. 30 days is kind of the most common. Now, obviously, a bunch of different factors go into this. If the house is vacant, you can do 30 days and or less. And if somebody's still living in the home, it's all about kind of what kind of agreement you can come with. Even with people living in the home, you're still roughly looking at about 30 days, but sometimes people need a little bit of extra time to move, so you might be able to extend it. But to answer your question, 30 days is kind of that average. The average and kind of the most common. Sandeep Sala, what's up, man? I hope you're doing good. Hey, bro, how are you? What is your opinion on Kannapolis area? I've been driving here for the last few months and seeing things exploding. Yeah, we talked about this when we met before. Kannapolis is definitely on the come up, just like a lot of these other areas just outside of Charlotte are happening, because as everything's continuing to grow, it's just expanding. And Kannapolis is going through those big changes. They're putting some money into the areas. You're seeing a lot more, restaurants, coffee shops, and things like that start to pop up, where it's kind of giving you that, downtown Concord feel. And obviously there's areas within Kannapolis where you have that lake access. But yeah, no, there's a lot of activity in Kannapolis, and I think it's going to continue to grow. And especially if we're comparing Kannapolis to some other areas, I mean, Sandeep, you know this. I mean, the what you can get for the money in Kannapolis is relatively strong. However, because of certain parts in Kannapolis, kind of similar to Gastonia, it hasn't quite hit that mark where it's popping up on everybody's radar. Which in your case, being an investor, that's exactly what you want. So I like Kannapolis. I like Kannapolis, especially in regards to investing purposes, and I see the activity continuing, to go there. We never know what's going to happen, and there's been people that were invested in certain areas in and around Charlotte for a while, and kind of nothing has come of it. But we're just seeing so much change in regards to what they're doing. And again, just following the trend. As soon as you see some apartment complexes start to pop up, as soon as you see them starting to build, more areas for shopping, more plazas, and things like that, you're just going to see that progression start to take place. All in all, I'm in for Kannapolis, especially in regards to investing. I think it's a good bet. I think they're going to continue to keep building out over there. This is a good question. What are some of the most walkable neighborhoods? I'm going to actually make a video in regards to this. Charlotte it's mainly a car city. You need to own a car, obviously, unless you're living in Uptown and South End and Dilworth and in certain places like that. Even South Park, I'm not sure if you guys watched that video I did. I had that penthouse condo, which we're hopefully, fingers crossed, closing on Friday. It's in Piedmont Row, and it's so walkable, depending on location. But I'm actually going to make a video in regards to your question about the most walkable neighborhoods in and around Charlotte that is not Uptown, South End, kind of the standard ones. But again, for the most part, Charlotte it's a car city. You're going to need a car. I live relatively close to South Park, and I need a car. I'm only walking my dog in the neighborhoods and stuff like that, but it's a car city, that's for sure. This light rail and all that stuff is amazing, but the way the technology and you got these self-driving cars happening right now, I don't even know if people are going to own cars in 10 years. It's going to be a pretty crazy change in regards to that. But speaking of the light rail, that whole area over there where Starmount is, Madison Park, right there off of South Boulevard, there's a new area now. you got South End, then you got Lower South End, LoSo, and now there's a new area popping up, in regards to that. So it's hilarious. But you know how we do things here in Charlotte. Just once a brewery goes up, things start to happen. I like Waverly and Ray Farms when it's convenient for walking. They have a lot of restaurants, grocery shopping, everything we need on a daily basis. 100%. That area, especially over there, like by Provincetown and stuff like that. It was, I can't remember when, but 2 years ago maybe, it was voted like the number one, area for families and things like that. But it's a gorgeous area. You're literally right there on 485. So driving to Ballantyne, right there on Providence Road, take Providence Road directly down to, Center City, Uptown Charlotte. It's one of my favorite areas. I would, the housing prices there obviously they're up there, even for things that are not move-in ready, let alone that have been like fully upgraded and things. But, when my wife and I, when we were looking for our house, that's one of the areas we were looking at, but it was just too pricey. Everything I was finding was like 650 to 700,000 that I liked, and it still needed work, and I wasn't up for it. So luckily we found something in an area where our townhouse is only 7 minutes away, but it's a totally different feel. It's so interesting because you can drive by certain areas almost daily, but you never truly understand or get a feel for what it feels like to live there until you actually live there. So being just 7 minutes down the road from our previous house, it's just so different. We still go to the same grocery store, but we started adding in a bunch of new places. A lot of we always went to South Park and things like that for the restaurants, but now even more so because we're just like, hey, it's 5-10 minutes away. We're just gonna go here. Still going to downtown Matthews, easily one of my favorite areas. But it's fascinating. You drive by, you're going through these areas all the time, but when you actually live there, it totally feels different. Which, in regards to your question about Kannapolis, it'd be very interesting to feel what it's like living in Kannapolis, But yeah, Waverly and Ray Farms is awesome. When I first moved to Charlotte almost 12 years ago, Waverly and Ray Farms weren't even there. It wasn't even a thing. I remember they were doing construction, there, and it's just crazy how much that area has exploded. I wanted to go to the Lifetime Fitness over there because I heard it's really nice. But anytime I've gone up there towards that area, there isn't a time of day when it's not jam packed. And I was like, I don't want to deal with. I don't want to have to deal with doing all that. How do you think Moore Farm will end up? It seems nice from the ads. You talking about the new construction community in Moore Farm? Yeah. So Moore Farm, that's Indian Trail. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I think it's going to be great. I know they have the mix of single family homes and townhouses. I literally looked at the pricing. I want to say like a couple of weeks ago or 2 months ago because somebody had actually asked me about it. But I think it's going to end up being really nice. I really do, especially over there because you're going to be close to Sun Valley, which if you're by there, so much activities happen. They got the new Publix that opened up not too long ago, maybe a year or two ago. And Sun Valley is going to expand. To the left of Sun Valley, you have all that kind of farmland and things like that. And I believe they've already started working on some things over there, but there's a lot happening. But I think Moore Farm will be, I think it will end up being a nice community, especially with the mixture of the single family and the townhouses. I'm assuming the townhouses are going to be relatively okay. If you're thinking about it, inspection. I'm not going to mention the builder there, but feel free to Google it. Just get your inspections done and all that stuff. I don't mean to scare you or anything like that, but do your due diligence. That's kind of the biggest thing. That always do your due diligence, no matter what the case is, but especially if you've heard some things about it before. But it's crazy because I sometimes think like, where the hell are they finding all of this space to just build these new communities. So I take Sardis Road North every morning, when I'm on my way to the gym, and there was a single family home on this gigantic corner lot right before you hit Matthews Pineville Road. I saw when it sold and I was like, I wonder if somebody bought this land and they're going to build like a multi-million-dollar home. And they just put out the sign a couple of weeks ago. It's going to be a JP Orland's home, which based off my experience with the builder, they build nice houses. The last community I saw that they built was about 4 or 5 years ago. And at that time, their starting homes were $700,000 or $800,000. So now with all the changes, I'm very curious to see what homes they're gonna build there. It's gonna be a cool little niche community, amazing location, and it's probably gonna be, I don't know, 20 homes, maybe 30 homes. I obviously didn't drive in there because they're starting to clear out the land and things like that. But that community is gonna be awesome, and I'm excited to see what the prices are gonna be like. They're probably gonna be $1 million plus, if I was guessed to say between $1 million and $1.5 million. But I like that builder. I remember walking through that one community 4 or 5 years ago that I was talking about, and they make a quality product, JP Orland's. But again, with that, it's so fascinating because if you don't go to an area for a couple of months and all of a sudden you drive through, you just see what they're doing. They're building these apartment complexes and all these different things. And I made a video about my top 5 favorite projects that are going to be happening here in the Charlotte area. And I mean, there's a good amount of them. All of them include, that additional retail space, that additional shopping space, and then obviously housing. But again, you hear so much thing about, hey, we're working on affordable housing, but you're just not seeing it. They're starting to release some lots over there in the River District, and I know they talked about wanting to have, more affordable housing, but I'm not seeing that based off the prices either. So it's fascinating. I always go back to Charlotte population expecting to double in 10 years. I can't imagine what things are going to look like, when that takes place. And Sandeep, if you're still watching, I know we talked about this, but I know I'm excited for it, just, accumulating and building the portfolio and see where the next 10 years takes me. Hopefully I can be in Bora Bora sipping pina coladas, and the rental properties take care of the rest. A couple people on here, guys, hit me with any and all questions. Question about a zip code, about a house, a specific house. I'm open to that as well. Specific neighborhood, anything like that. I'm happy to help. It seems like houses in Fort Mill are taking longer to sell. Why do you think that is? I mean, it depends. The whole market is taking a lot longer to sell. It's just surprising. And when I went over the stats, it's like a lot of the sellers and things like that are putting their houses on the market based off of the percentage that are just taking their houses off the market if they're not getting the price they want. There's just no super need for a lot of sellers right now in Charlotte to sell. That's why the market is so kind of sporadic, because you do have people that have to sell that are kind of trickled in there. But for the most part, a lot of people are just sitting on a lot of equity. A lot of people are sitting on really good interest rates, and there's just no need unless it's something that pops up, family-wise, relocation-wise, or something like that. So, I'm not sure what area or neighborhood specifically you're talking about in Fort Mill, but it's not just Fort Mill. It's everywhere, It's the stats are always a good thing to look at, especially when you niche down to a specific neighborhood or zip code, because they're relatively accurate in regards to, hey, this is how long you should expect your home to sell, between 60 to 100 days. But again, if the house is right and you hit the market at the right time, the right buyer comes across, they still sell. We still have multiple offers happening, but that's not a Fort Mill thing. That's a everywhere thing. Houses sitting on the market for longer. It's just the natural thing. Right now, the average days on market, I believe, is just under 45. It's not, we're gonna hit 60 to 80 days average on market. Obviously it's gonna put more pressure for the prices to come down, but we thought that a couple years ago, and it still hasn't happened. We're still hitting new all-time highs. So we'll see how everything shakes out. It's so interesting when it comes to housing, because if you buy a brand new car, you know, everybody says, oh, as soon as you drive it off the lot or drive it, you know, $2,000, 3,000, 3,000 miles, you lose 10, 15, 20% in depreciation. And people know that you still buy a car. But for some reason, when it comes to real estate, everybody's like, oh, I'm waiting for the prices to come down. What if they come down? And everybody's so worried. Everybody's situation is different when you're looking to buy and or sell. Do it when it's the right time for you. And, you know, if you're waiting for certain corrections, they may or may not come, but nothing ever happens sometimes it does, but for the most part, it doesn't. It's just like, hey, when's the perfect time to take a vacation? According to your work schedule, it's never, but you just got to do it or don't do it. You know, that decision is 100% up to you. All right. I think that's going to be it for the live. I will be back next week for the market report. Very curious what to see. Prices potentially are going to be stagnant, but again, we'll see what happens. We're already in August. September is right around the corner. My favorite time in regards to buyers, September to January, February. I think that's where you're going to be looking at really good deals. So we're going to see the market start to shift as we head out of that summer season, but it's going to be very interesting. Any and all questions, if you have something in specific, call, text, or email me anytime. I appreciate you guys joining the live. I can't believe it's 70 degrees outside, even though last week was 98 every single day. But I'm going to go ahead and walk Luna, and I'll catch you on the next one. All right? Take care. Bye.